Folks, this is our final stop on our tour of the Jennie Wade house. Simply because this is the last stop that Jennie made. Guys, remember, she would have been carried the entire way through that house, the same way we just walked, okay? Brought down the staircase and laid to rest right up in front of the basement, just the way she is now. I will tell you guys, because people ask, that is not the original body of Jennie Wade. And the look on their faces when I said thanks to the body, it's priceless, so I tell everybody that. Okay? Folks, if you can imagine this, Jennie and the family were down here for 18 hours. It was dark down here, it was cold, there was fighting outside. Imagine what that must have been like, to be cramped up down here in the basement for 18 hours. Okay? Folks, as we go through the house, we've gone through the house tonight, we've heard stories about Georgia, Jennie's older sister, right? Jennie, of course, the families that lived here. If you guys would take just a minute for me and take a look at the painting on the wall. Take a minute to look at that and tell me who you think should be in that painting that isn't. Jennie's there, she's under the quilt.
The father?
The father, okay.
The mother.
Mom and dad, all right. Anybody else?
The boy.
Where's the other one?
No, the boys are there. There's one on the bench by the fireplace, the other on the left. Okay. You guys hit it right on the head. You don't see mom and dad. Folks, we know that Mrs. Wade was here. But you don't see her in the painting. Why? Is she the one that painted it? No, she isn't. Guys, Jennie was baking bread when she was killed, right? Literally fell where she was. You don't see Mrs. Wade in that painting because she didn't spend much time here in the basement. When she knew that her family was safe, Mrs. Wade left the basement, walked all the way back around the house into her oldest daughter's kitchen, and she picked up right where Jennie left off. She took the dough that Jennie had left to rise and baked 15 loaves of bread with it and gave it all away because she knew that Jennie wouldn't want it wasted. That's why you don't see Mrs. Wade in there. The reason you don't see Dad. Do you guys remember me telling you that someone may find themselves in a seat that they don't like? Two of you are there. Any guesses to where it might be?
Where I'm sitting, I hope.
That far back corner.
Damn it.
Guys, this corner of the room is where Mr. Wade, Jennie's father, likes to hang out. We don't know why, but he likes this corner of the room. Okay? Now guys, you haven't heard a single story about James Wade. You haven't seen a single photograph of it. Why not? Does anyone know? James Wade was not here when his daughter was killed. He was in prison. Again, guys, do you know where he was in prison? I'll give you two clues. It's the oldest penitentiary in the United States.
Eastern State.
Yeah. Eastern State Penitentiary, guys. In Philadelphia. That's where he was incarcerated. He spent 2 years there, so he wasn't even here when Jennie was killed. Why do we think he's still here today? Well, and that's one of the reasons I don't like him. He was a convict, he was a thief, he was a felon. He wasn't here to protect his family. Okay, guys, I'm retired military, so James Wade and I don't get along very well, and that's fine. He doesn't like me, I don't like him. However, have you guys seen any of the ghost investigation shows from Gettysburg?
Yeah.
Did you see the episode on the Jennie Wade house?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Those of you who have, was it Ghost Adventures you guys saw?
Yeah.
Zach, Nick, and Aaron, yeah. Do you guys remember what happened? Let me set the scene for you. If you've seen Ghost Adventures, you know that there are 3 guys in the group, Zach, Nick, and Aaron, right? They were here to film an episode about 5 years ago. Nick and Aaron were sitting here on the sides filming. Zach started in the back of the room. He said something to Nick and Aaron for the camera, and then he walked up through the middle of the room. He gets up here to the body of Jennie Wade. He stops, turns back to the camera, says something else, and then Zach makes one of those decisions that he's famous for. If you guys know what I'm talking about, he doesn't always make the best decisions, right? He made one here. He literally climbed on top of Jennie. He wasn't there 5 seconds. And he described his behind being pinched, he said, harder than he'd ever been pinched on any investigation anywhere in the world that they've done. Guys, he literally jumped onto this floor and ran to the back of the room and stayed there the rest of the night. That pinch, could it have been James Wade protecting his daughter? It's possible. Could it have been Jennie herself? Yeah. Georgia, Mrs. Wade, any of the other family members that used to live here. It could have been anyone, okay? But we think it's James because he never got a chance in life to protect his daughter, and we think he's still doing it today. All right? One final story about James, guys. It begins right here. We've talked about meetings before. You guys know what they do. We had one a few years back as their guest speaker on the Midnight Tour. He had just mentioned how James Wade was a felon. He was a convict. No one in town liked him. He was a thief. And an odd thing happened. The curtain you guys see here between these two rooms, the fan wasn't on at that time, but the curtain was seen to do this. It was seen to flutter open like someone walked through it. Well, he'd been in this house many times, our guest speaker had. He didn't pay much mind to it. A few seconds later, though, he changed his mind about that. As he stood up here, he continued talking about Mr. Wade, and an odd thing happened. He said his shirt was grabbed, and he was literally pulled over, he said, on the folks who sat here in the front row. Could that have been James Wade, just a few seconds after Darren talked about it? It could be. Right? Folks, that being said, as we wrap the tour up tonight, we're going to spend just a few minutes in the dark.
Nice.
What kind of ghost tour guide would I be if I didn't put us in the dark once? All right, guys, before I do that, though, if you need to get up and take a look at this picture, guys, take a look for me right here. This is a picture of Jenny's grave marker up in Evergreen Cemetery. It's where she's buried. You'll notice there's a flag flying in that photo. There is something very special about that flag. Do you guys know what it is? Any ideas? You can't see it. You can't see it? I promise you, if you walk in the cemetery right now, you'll see it. It's lit up. Guys, what's special about that flag is this. There's another one just like it. There are 2 civilian women in history that have the honor of having a flag fly above their graves 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Jennie Wade is one of them. Who's the other woman? Betsy Ross. If you guys go to Philadelphia to the Betsy Ross house, her grave is literally right outside the house. And you'll notice she's got a flag just like this one flying 24/7. She and Jenny are the only 2 civilian women in history to have that honor. If you guys think about that, it's an awesome thing, right? How many civilian women throughout history have done great things? Lots of them. But Jenny and Betsy are the only 2 that share that honor. Folks, that being said, do you guys have any further questions for me?
How do you know that Mr. Wade doesn't like you?
That's a great question. I was hoping someone would ask. Guys, on the weekends, and this just stopped here last weekend, but on our normal weekends, we have what we call midnight tour through the Jennie Wade house. On Friday nights, I'm usually the investigator that comes down here, so I'll bring my equipment out. I'm with one of the local paranormal groups. How do I know Mr. Wade doesn't like me? Because he's told me. We'll set equipment out back there, and I'll ask him flat out, James, you've seen me here before. You know who I am. Do we get along? And he'll say no. Every piece of equipment we set out, I get the same answer. And I don't like him, guys, because he was a thief, okay? He didn't have to steal the money that sent him to prison. He should have been here to protect his family. He was outspoken against the military, which aggravates me because I'm retired military. He simply wasn't here to protect his family. He was a thief, a convict, a felon, and didn't need to be. So I call him out on that. But the one thing he really doesn't like, his youngest son, we believe, is not actually his. We think he was born while James was in prison. And I'll call him out on that. I ask him all the time. I say, James, is your youngest son really yours? Sometimes he answers, sometimes he doesn't. But he hates that question. So that's why he doesn't like me. And the feeling's mutual. Folks, that's a great question, by the way. Anything else?